And then I started teaching it on my own a couple years later, and I went all over the country and taught that class for the rest of my time there.
Oh, wow.
And that really changed things.
How does that happen? How do you just all of a sudden start teaching classes
question.
around the country? Can you get into that?
You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Welcome back to the Investor Shed podcast. I am Nick Beveridge, your host, here with my co-host, Jeremy Kitchen. As always, beautiful day, huh?
It is such a beautiful day. Nick, how are we doing?
Doing wonderful.
Yeah. Speaking of doing wonderful, we've got a wonderful guest today.
We do, don't we?
Yeah. I had a really good time talking to Mo. We talked to Mo Smith today. She's doing a lot of really cool things, but we dive into how she uses a 203K loan to buy investment properties. Not what I said in the podcast because I'm an uncultured swine.
I feel like the 203K loan is like an old, really good movie, like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, that people just forgot about.
Yeah.
But
okay.
you'll watch it again, like, oh, this is good. I can't believe we forgot about this.
Yeah, but then people need to be reintroduced to these classics because I didn't even know what this thing was.
Yeah, the FHA 203K loan, we'll get into it. So you guys just got to wait. But first, what kind of food should people be eating, Jeremy? It's your turn.
What kind of food should people be eating? I had a really good one before I came here. I know last week, I hope people enjoyed the banana burgers. I hope they've done some research. So like, you know,
That was a top 5.
Yeah,
I would say
that looks good. What I would do is spaghetti. Your mom's spaghetti. Vomit on your sweater already. It's mom's spaghetti. So mom's spaghetti is what I want you to have and enjoy while this episode is playing.
We've used spaghetti already.
Spaghetti already. It's mom's spaghetti.
Hey, everybody. I'm Mo Smith. Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. I'm really excited to be here today. So I live in Everett, Washington, and I'm a life and business coach, and I spent 8 years in the real estate industry. And then when COVID hit, I recognized that it was time for me to leave, start my own business. And so I jumped with just enough money to last me about a month and a half. And I've been going 3.5 years now, and I love it. I do not only coaching, but also workshop facilitation and retreats that I put on. And then I also host retreats for companies. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, okay, wait, back up real quick. What kind of work were you doing again?
Oh, before this?
Yeah.
I was a director of operations for a real estate team for 8 years.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. What, so like a real estate sales team?
Mm-hmm. It's called Pickett Street Properties out of Bothell, Washington.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've run a real estate sales team. That piques my interest.
I thought you said you researched our guest, Nick. You didn't know this? You didn't know this?
Her current stuff, she threw that in the garbage. And she went and started her real life because, real estate's it never stops.
Right. Today, Mo, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you here, and I'm excited to hear your story. Like you said, you've done some real estate stuff, but I really want to get down in some nitty-gritty life, beautiful moments in your life too. We'll kind of touch on all those, but again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I can already tell we're going to have a good time because before we even hit record, these guys they've been hitting record since I got on.
Yeah. That's content, people.
So tell us, did you grow up in Everett as well?
I grew up in Seattle, so just south of here, about a half an hour. Yeah.
Okay. What was it like? What was it like growing up in that area?
Amazing. I have 3 younger brothers, and so I just had a lot of fun. I have a big extended family. I have I think 20 first cousins.
Wow.
And so they all live in the area, and a really tight immediate family. So my mom and dad and my brothers are some of my best friends. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And what got you into the real estate field?
Well, at the time, I just kind of fell into it, and I was not happy about it, actually.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a new job. I had just left the Seattle Art Museum because I was burnt out, and I was starting to have panic attacks because certain projects weren't being moved forward fast enough, and I like to get things done. And so I just asked all my friends, hey, who do you know that's looking for someone? I will take anything right now. I just want something different. And I just happened upon an interview with a guy named Jesse Moore. And at first I was like, there's no way in hell I'm taking this job. Real estate agents, salespeople suck. I don't like them.
Yeah.
But I ended up taking it, and I ended up staying for almost 8 years. So it changed my life in the best way because I learned that I can run a small business. I'm actually really good at all these different aspects of business.
Okay.
So how big was this real estate team when you joined?
When I joined, probably 7 people. So we had an investor department. A third of our business at the time was investing and flipping at the from the auction. And then we had the traditional and Keller Williams language, the MREA style team. So we had a listing department, a buyer department, and an investor department. And it fluctuated anywhere between 4 to 10 people during the time I was there.
Okay. Wow. And what was your role when you got hired on?
My first title was team administrator. So first thing that comes to my mind, because I just say shit, basic bitch. Like I was like, anything you need done, I get it done.
Yeah.
I did all the listing paperwork, and I was really learning the business for the first 2 years.
Yeah. Well, isn't that a great way to start, though? I mean, I wouldn't put that down necessarily.
No, it's nothing to put down at all. That's sometimes the things that come to my head are things that I would say to my mom.
Right. Yeah.
No, it was very difficult, though. The first 2 years were actually 2 of the hardest years, I would say, during my time there, because I thought something was wrong. I've always been a very high achiever. I was very good at every job I'd had before. And I thought at one point I've met my match. I'm not that great at real estate. But what I learned was that the team leader, Jesse, and I really started to have really good conversations because we had to. Because I was like, I'm going to have to leave if I don't figure out how to handle this workload. Because I was working till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, completely stressed out. And so that actually prompted a conversation with Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams. One of his assistants called her up and just said, "Hey, am I average, or like what's going on here?" And so she let us in on a little secret that like we should have hired someone 9 months ago, because one of the things you learn in business, right, is you just got to learn what your capacity is, and you have to be able to communicate that. And so it started that started my whole personal development journey when I realized, I am actually really good at what I do, and I just have to learn more about myself.
Sure.
So did you find yourself like overwhelmed by repetitive tasks? Or
I found myself overwhelmed by probably the mix of all the types of different things I had to do. And so for the first time ever, I wasn't just working in the docent program department, for instance, at the Seattle Art Museum. I was just in the education department. Here, I was doing a little bit in finance, a little bit in recruiting, a little bit in training, a little bit in marketing, a little bit in PR, a little bit in everything.
Yeah.
And then I was also constantly getting interrupted. And so I'm the type of person that when you put me in flow and I'm working, I will get shit done fast. But with people coming in, knocking on my door, talking to me, and constantly interrupting my thought process, it slowed me down. And I got even more overwhelmed. Yeah.
I feel that very
gosh.
hard.
I totally feel that too. I wonder if it's like that in other industries too, because I feel like
I imagine so.
More than half my day is just interruptions. You know, I have goals on paper of what I want to do that day, and then I get bombarded by interruptions. But they're also they're not like bad interruptions, not all of them. Like they could be opportunities
Totally.
or things that really need attention immediately.
Yeah.
It's not all bad interruptions. So it's a fine dance. This like trying to, and maybe there's I haven't been in that many other industries as heavy as I have been in real estate, but
I feel like it's a really good training in how to prioritize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally. So once you figured out, a couple years in that you were missing a hire, who was that hire?
Oh, missing a hire for the team?
Yeah.
The first instrumental hire actually was an in-house TC, because we were outsourcing our TC and we realized, we're paying this third-party TC almost nearly $60,000. And we could, because we were averaging 150 deals a year. And so by bringing an in-house TC, we could start her off at a lower salary, and she could be an assistant to me. And so that was the instrumental change. Yeah.
And for those that don't know Realtor talk, what is TC?
Transaction coordinator. So the person behind the scenes that handles all the paperwork for your buying and selling needs.
And this is for this is for properties that are already under contract, right? Like there's already a buyer in a house.
The prep work too. So they would handle all of the prep work, prepping the paperwork for a listing before it goes on. Anything having to do with any of the auction properties we dealt with, they would handle anything paperwork wise. So I actually was never a transaction coordinator.
Okay. And were these people that you hired that came like bodies in the door, or were they? Yeah,
she worked full time, 40 hours a week. And so not only did she help with all the paperwork, but she also helped me with keeping track of statistics and all the people stuff, a lot of the HR type stuff. So she was kind of my right-hand person.
Gotcha. What else did you get to experience after that couple of years?
Well, about 8 months in, I think it was, not even a year yet, my boss said to me, he's like, you're going to teach a class about how to be an excellent executive assistant. And I was like, what? So far, I don't think I'm nailing this. I don't think I'm doing very well at this. And he was like, no, you are, and you're going to teach it. And so about a year and a half in, I started teaching a class that turned into like a 5-hour class, actually, that really started I would say building my niche in my community in the real estate industry. And so I started teaching the class with him so that he could provide the perspective of the CEO and building that relationship with the admin. And then I started teaching it on my own a couple years later, and I went all over the country and taught that class for the rest of my time there.
Oh, wow.
And that really changed things. Yeah.
So how does that happen? How do you just all of a sudden start teaching classes
question.
around the country? Can you get into that?
What's up, North Idaho people?
Hello.
Hey, we've got an amazing real estate seminar coming to Coeur d'Alene here later this year. We want to tell you about it so that you'll hurry up and buy tickets.
Yes, get your tickets. The amazing Kathy Fecky is flying in. AJ Osborne, the king of self-storage, is flying in.
Steve Rosenberg, y'all know him, he's muscly. Brad Chandler, changed your life. Tom Millwright, man of the hour. Get a free book too when you sign up. Quickly, do it before the end of the month and you'll get a free book.
Yeah. So my background is I have a master's in social work, and I'm also an artist. I had a photography business for about 8 years, and my family is full of teachers, and so I wanted to go the opposite direction because I found that I've always wanted more, and so I knew I didn't want to be a teacher with a regular 9-to-5 type job, but I also knew that teaching was in me, and I love helping people understand things. And so I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And what I got addicted to was the opportunities that come when you teach. So it was like every classroom I met people who would give me new information or would help me build relationships. And this was how I started to build a community of admin across the country that first attended my retreat that I then hosted in 2017. So it all just I got addicted to networking and opening up my eyes to all sorts of different opportunities.
Yeah. Can you go into exactly but how do you even get to that point? Like how do you go from I'm working for this guy to now I'm buying plane tickets and I'm teaching to random people?
Yeah. No,
like was this a Keller Williams thing, or was this something that you created?
No, it probably was from the perspective of Jesse. He had started to teach. He was teaching a class. I forget what the title of it was, but he would teach to people in the area about how to build a team, because it was still pretty new in the Pacific Northwest area to build a team the way that he was. And so he was teaching, so he was like, he saw the benefits of it and he knew that I could see benefits of it. And then I knew, like, instinctively, because I had also been in charge of teaching some classes to the docents at the museum, I knew how to build a curriculum. I knew how to build an outline. And I didn't know that what I was going to teach was going to be unique. Like, I didn't know that the way that I think about systems and processes was that different, but it was, as it turned out. So I built a class that really showed, here's all the systems and processes that we use. Here's how I think about them. Here's how I handle people. Here's how I hire people. And people found it to be really helpful. So I just kept going. Yeah.
Perfect.
I can imagine people found it really helpful, honestly, like when you take that and you take your own personal experiences, right? Because a lot of the stuff that people teach, just cookie cutter like this is the thing.
Yes.
But you're adding, you're like, this is how I'm feeling in the thing.
Yes.
And that's just a whole new revelation as far as teaching goes. So
Yeah,
that's really
totally.
cool.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, what I found with admin, especially in the real estate world, is 93% of admin across industries are women, and I was definitely one who did not speak my voice very well at all until I was about 35.
Gotcha.
And so I had a lot of opinions on things that we were doing that I was not voicing that could have improved our systems and processes and all sorts of things at a much faster rate. And so I had to learn how to speak my voice, and I think that's one thing that people really found to be intriguing.
Gotcha. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
Nick's running out real quick. Sorry, his door was ringing, so
That's okay.
he's back. All right.
That my daughter's knocking at the shed door, trying to say goodbye before she goes
That
to
was
school.
very sweet of her. I saw that.
That was very sweet of her, but I'm going to yell
she's
at her
saying
later.
goodbye.
Don't yell. You spray her with a hose. It's humane.
Oh my god.
I'll wait till she gets back from school, and then I'll...
No, but yeah,
do
going forward.
something
So obviously you learned to teach and you learned to do all this stuff. I want to kind of dive into how you did that, Mo. Right? So you had your team leader who basically forced your hand into doing teaching. Was that correct?
forced my hand.
Well, you said you're doing this. Am I correct?
Yeah, if I didn't want to do it, it wouldn't have happened.
Right,
so I had to.
sure.
Yeah.
But like it sometimes it does take a little bit of a push from
Prompting.
somebody else, because
Absolutely.
I like Nick's done a lot of that for me. He's pushed me into an almost uncomfortable scenario, but it's ended up working out really well for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. It does have to come intrinsically. Like, you have to do that yourself, and the choice has to be made from you. It just did you get any kickback for that, or?
The idea would not have come to me if he hadn't said that.
Sure.
I think maybe a couple years down the road, watching him teach, I would have said, "Hey, I'd like to do that." But he definitely prompted me. Yeah.
Sure. And like, I mean, I've only been in front of audiences for the last like couple of years, but I can absolutely say like it's the best place to be if you're trying to network, or if you're just trying to get your message out there. To be honest with you, it's
Totally.
Yeah. Like, I love teaching. I love being in front of people. Like, again, give me the spotlight. I'm a Leo. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but like, I love trying to, the typical thing for a lot of people is educate and entertain. I try to do laugh and learn.
Yeah.
So I try to make it into like a slight comedy show when I'm up there, just so I can feed my own comedy instincts.
I love it. Yeah. So, I had a really good question in my mind, and then I forgot all.
Oh,
I
no.
forgot it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Let's just keep
Oh,
going.
wait. Yep. Nope. I dropped it again.
All right. Well, what I want to talk
It'll
about.
come back.
Okay. So what I want to talk about, Mo. Obviously, you've done a lot of teaching, and we're going to get into some of your programs in a little bit. But you specifically have used an investor loan that not a lot of people have used in order to get your investing career started. I saw you speak at your I Love It When your was it the Secret Sauce?
Oh yeah, the social media and your secret
Social
sauce
media
class.
one, yeah. And you started talking about your investing, and I'm like, I've heard this loan probably twice in my life. I've never given it any sort of mind. Can you kind of break down like how you started getting into the investing world and like what that actually meant to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Changed my life. So we used to host Thursday night investor meetings back when I first started on the team, and so every first Thursday of the month, we'd bring in investor clients, and we would teach them something that was going on in the market, and then also go over any new available properties. Because at that time, we were purchasing at auction, flipping, and then relisting, selling. And so our mortgage lender is really the one who started all of it. His name's Cody Touche, and he's now with Movement Mortgage. And so one of the things I always tell prospective buyers and people who are interested in investing in real estate is who you work with matters, 100%. And so Cody has a mind like he's got this stack of 3x5 cards in his brain, and that's probably one of the most important aspects about someone who works in mortgage and is an investor, because he had been investing, he knew all of the options, and so he always will find a way. And so he took out a napkin at one point. He's like, Margaret, all right, if I could go back and do anything, I would go back and buy a duplex as my first purchase. And he wrote down on that napkin what I could probably afford if I bought a single family home, and it was $325,000 here in the Northwest area. If I bought a duplex, it went up to $375,000, I think. Triplex, $450,000, fourplex, like close to $500,000. And all of a sudden, my brain clicked and I got it. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I can afford more if I buy a duplex? I had buying power. And so once I understood that, then I was like, sold, done. And we just started to look. And so the loan came up as an option because I found a property that needed a little bit of work. And so Cody was like, you could do the FHA 203K loan, and you can build in the money to do the remodel. So I think I put down just $5,000 because I did not have very much savings at all.
Right.
And I was a single woman working on a $55,000 income. And so I like to tell people this story because people often think they have to save thousands of dollars, like $20,000, $30,000 before they buy a home. So I did $5,000 down, and then I worked $22,000 into the loan for just some carpet, paint, new kitchen downstairs, and upstairs where the tenants were going to live. I had to do really basic paint.
Sure.
And so I did that the first time, and then sold that house about 2.5 years later.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You were the first person I think I've ever met that has actually done a 203K loan.
Okay.
And I've heard about him for 14 years.
Yeah.
And I remember FHA was so much more common until prices started going crazy. But what a great idea or opportunity for people to just start taking advantage of now. If they can find fixer-uppers in the area.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like now's the time to actually employ that, because there's so many like sellers that have good equity that would gladly work with buyers and have a little more patience these days. Because if we can go in a little bit deeper on that 203K loan. The things that kind of make it hard is like you have to, from what I remember, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but you have to have like a home inspector who's certified in it, like inspect the whole way as you go, and they have to like inspect the contractor's work, and they're constantly reporting back and forth to the lender. And it's just really hard to find like a good contractor and a good inspector that work in tandem together, that aren't too busy, that can get everything done in time and on budget. But what was your experience like going through that?
Well, I'm really glad that I did this first house at a lower price point, that I just had that size of a loan, because the thing about the FHA 203K loan is it's really not that hard, but it's harder on the mortgage company. So they have to track a lot of the paperwork. They are the ones that provided the FHA consultant for me, so I didn't have to find that person. And then we had all of these contractors since I worked on the team, so I found a contractor real easy. It was the fact that before you start the work, you have to like line item out everything you want done in the house. And then once it's set in stone, it's set in stone. And anything else that pops up, you have to pay out of pocket. And so I ended up having to pay out of pocket for kitchen cabinets. For some reason, we hadn't put those on the list. And so that was an example of kind of what went wrong that first time. But in the big picture, we got it done in the course of 2 months. And then the next project that I did, I sold that house, like I mentioned, 2.5 years later. I made $95,000, which was more money than I'd ever seen in my whole life. Right? And then I bought another duplex, the one that I live in now, and I did the same loan with a $240,000 remodel. Okay. And so that was like my project to like learn this process before this one, I realized. And so, yeah, I mean, the inspector part was, it was not, I would say, it was just like any other real estate transaction. I had to fill out the paperwork on time, make sure I got stuff back. But as long as you are willing to project manage, I'm like, hey, I wouldn't be able to access this money any other way. So this is it was such a blessing to be able to do it that way.
That's awesome. So if we can go in a little bit more details about that. So FHA 203K, that's where you can find a fixer-upper and you can get the funds to purchase both the home and all the renovation costs, but you still need 3.5% down, right?
Yep.
Plus,
and things might have changed now. I haven't looked at the recent. I don't know if like things change so much so often that I don't know like what's still happening with the FHA 203K. Yeah, that's what I like. I just check with your mortgage lender if you're listening. You're like, oh, I want to check this out.
Yeah. Now and the renovation money, was that left at escrow or is that left with the lender until it was paid out to the contractor as work was completed?
That's a good question. I don't know.
You don't have to answer it. That's okay.
I think with that first house, the contractor was not paid back until the end of the job, whereas with this house, they were paid in chunks because it was so much more money. Sure. Because I think in Washington State at the time when I did this house in 2017, there were people with a ton of cash doing this in all that, like you could do it up to, I believe, $1 million. Wow. And so people actually utilize this loan. I heard about different people that are in baseball particularly that were using this loan actually.
Yeah, we got to teach it at our investor meetings.
I called it the wrong thing. I called it the 205. Obviously, I know nothing about this loan. Okay. Well, so I'll have the experts kind of go about this. I have no.
Sometimes you forget what tools you have in your toolbox.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think a lot of mortgage lenders are nervous about this too.
I haven't even heard of a 203K loan for a few years, and I don't know why. It hasn't
a lot of mortgage lenders
common.
won't talk about it because they don't want to do it.
Because it's a lot of work. It's like triple the work of a regular loan at least or more. But it's such a great product.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like I said, you said, another tool in your tool belt as far as getting approved and getting shit done.
So earlier I had a huge headspacey moment because my daughter came in and I had a great question lined up and then I forgot all about it. But I wanted to ask you about the classes, if we can go back just a little bit, that you were putting on or that you were teaching. Was there anything unique or that actually warranted like having to go and teach these classes to these teams or these administrators, assistants, or were you pretty much just teaching what was already in like the red book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book? Just curious, like, did those correlate well, or did you guys have your own systems that you were teaching?
Yeah, good question. So the MREA, what I would say we followed more was how duties were assigned to team members. That's the part that we followed pretty closely. But in terms of the systems and processes, that was a lot of what I created. So like our operations manual was an Evernote, the process of how we developed certain things. So I was talking a lot about those systems and processes, but then I was also talking a lot about the people part. Because the thing that I recognized real quickly within a year of being in the industry was that a lot of real estate agents, and most real estate agents, have zero training around leadership and management. Yep. And so there were a lot of relationships and partnerships that were constantly falling apart, were really toxic, and I started to speak to that. And I think that was what made my class most unique, was people came for the systems and processes, but then they left being like, oh, now I know how to have a hard conversation. Because I had it was like probably 60% admin in the class, 40% real estate agents, because the agents were coming because they wanted to hear me talk about my perspective, because either they didn't know how to ask their admin the right questions, or their admin didn't trust them, so they weren't actually having open and honest conversation.
Yeah.
How many transactions was your team doing on average while you were there? 150
a year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for those that don't know, that's a lot of transactions, where the average agent does about
like
5
or
6.
Say. Yeah. Yeah.
5 or 6 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so each person on the team is doing what, 20 or so deals, right?
Yeah,
or
I always
more?
tell people it's like getting a graduate degree in real estate. You learn that much more quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by having a team in place, agents are able to get more stuff done because they're not bogged down by every little tiny thing that comes along with the business. Because most agents only do a few deals a year because there's all these other things. They just don't have the time to do more because there's compliance, there's marketing, there's operations, there's everything else. And I think what's fascinating about a team is like they just a group of people coming together, and they can do a lot more together sometimes than they could individually and make more money. Anyway, getting away from that, tell us about what transitioned you into becoming like more in a leadership role
While on the team.
Yeah. Or because I know in your business, I mean, you really kind of, would you teach a little bit about like being an authentic leader? So,
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Yeah. So what got you into that?
Well, one of the things that happened while I was on the team was about 3 years into it, my boss started going through a divorce, and he was really pulled away from the business in a big way. And so in a lot of different ways, I was forced to step up and start to take charge and do more, and not just more tasks, but really take more of a leadership role. And I was the person people were looking to.
Okay.
So that's what started it. And I was like, didn't think I was ready for it at all, but I'm really good at it. Like, I'm good with people. And so I really started to learn a lot more about how to communicate clearly. And the book Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott is one that completely changed my life and gave me an actual dialogue to follow with which to tell people certain things that I had a hard time giving people feedback or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so that just started my passion for really learning more about myself so that I could be a better leader. And then I wanted to start sharing it with other people, because that completely and utterly changed my life forever.
Yeah. I hear such great things about that book, but I haven't read it yet because the title just seems so aggressive.
I actually can't read, so that's...
Oh, yeah, and I can't read. No. Because I'm a little retard.
You're not. We don't say that word.
I do.
So go ahead. So obviously you had your leadership with the Keller Williams team, and then you started branching off and doing your own thing. Is that correct? So now you're doing your own kind of masterminds and your own teachings and your own events, right? So what was the transition like specifically from a team where I'm assuming were you W-2 or were you 1099 on that?
W-2.
W-2? Okay. And then when you started running your own business, obviously that's a no-holds-barred, fight for your life out there. How was that transition like for you? Because I think a lot of our listeners, like, they're going through the W-2 and they're trying to figure out how to make a life for themselves.
So you mean specifically when I left my job and started my business?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The interesting thing about, like we were talking about earlier about getting interrupted all the time, I didn't realize how taxing that was on me. And a lot of things were, I was getting more and more resentful and more angry, I think, because I probably should have left like a year before I did. Yeah. I was just done. I was ready for something new. My vision at that point had gotten bigger than and different than what the team leader's vision was. And so when I left, COVID provided a really unique opportunity for me to be at home by myself. I had a roommate at the time. and I was in my own energy, and it felt so damn good that I was like, I can't go back. I can't go back. It's time for me to leave. And so it doesn't make any logical sense for me to have done it when I did. To do it at the beginning of COVID with just enough money to last me a month and a half is not smart or logical. But at that point, I stopped leaning so heavily on my logical brain, and I started leaning more into my intuition, and it just felt right. And so I took the leap and haven't looked back.
Yeah.
What was that conversation like when you went to quit?
Oh, it was hard because we had definitely built a really good relationship over the years and had leaned on each other in so many different ways. He'd helped me really learn how to invest in myself and invest in real estate and all these different things. But I also knew that what I've learned with all sorts of different relationships, I don't ever want to get to the point where I hate someone or like I have feelings of like that. I want to maintain the relationship. So I said to him, like, I think it's time for me to go, or else I'm going to, like, this is not going to be good for the team. And I could already tell I was not having, my energy was not the same. I was not having the desire to interact with the team as much. And so I didn't want it to affect his business any more than it already was.
Okay. Would you consider that to be like a fierce conversation that you guys had?
Oh yeah, I didn't use the dialogue at that point because, but for sure it was fierce. Susan, it's funny that people get caught up on the name of it because she had to have that conversation with the publishing company about the word they were going to use. It was before fierce, it was going to be something else. And fierce really meaning honest. Yeah.
Tangible conversations.
Yeah. But fierce really meaning super honest. And I think that's the thing that I really value more than anything is real, deep, true honesty, which can sometimes be painful.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what was it like your first month on your own?
Scary.
If you can remember.
I jumped on a plane the day after my last day, and I went to Denver, Colorado to meet some people that I had been networking with since COVID started, called Stronger Together.
Okay.
And it was just a group to like keep us all together and keep sane while COVID was starting. So I jumped on that plane, went to Denver, and then I went to Arizona to hang out with my brother Ben for a little while. And then I came home, and I was like, all right, the month of August, started my website, started everything up, and I got my first client 5 days before my mortgage was due in September, which was when I needed like $5,000 come September 1st. And all that money came in like 3 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how the money always tends to come in just when you need it.
Right.
When you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but it
I
always
have no
does.
idea.
But yeah, I want to dive into like what you're really doing right now, Mo, because obviously, I mean, again, you're doing masterminds, you're doing coaching. Tell us just like about you and how that all came to fruition and like where you're going with it, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it all came around during that journey at Pickett Street. So what I recognize is that I'm really good at creating a space where people feel safe to share. And when people feel safe to share, that's where magic can happen. Like all of a sudden you can build things that you never could have built before because someone's being honest about what they really truly love to do versus what they don't like to do, as a really simple example. So I got really good at that through hosting retreats while I was at Pickett Street. And I remember right before my first retreat, the girls that were there from all over the country were about to come into the cabin. And I said to myself, I could do this forever. Like, this is so much fucking fun. This is so easy. This is so exciting that I could do this forever. And so I took that energy with me into this business. And I've just decided that I am only going to do things that fill my cup. I'm no longer going to do things that don't feel fun to me. It's not worth it. Yeah.
If you can only give one piece of advice to a brand new entrepreneur that just left their job, that does need to come up with some actual money in the next, 3 months or something like that, what would be the one piece of advice that you can give somebody?
It's a great question. And right now, the answer that comes to me, which is probably going to be really hard for that new entrepreneur, is to be really quiet and still. And allow, rather than going and taking a lot of action, which is what we're trained to do, especially in Western society, I prefer to take inspired action. So rather than take 10 steps to reach my goal, I only want to take 2. It's easier, it's far less work, and you can do that by actually like listening to your inner voice and taking the steps that are actually going to get you farther faster. So it feels really counterintuitive and it feels really painful, but it actually works.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. A shit ton of action is not always going to get you the results that you want. And I can absolutely testify to that, because I spent years growing my real estate business to a big thing, and then I spent another couple of years absolutely destroying it by making all kinds of actions and decisions.
It's true.
So action isn't always the best thing. I agree with you there. Sometimes just be quiet and observe for a little bit and really focus in on what you want, because you can make things happen in an instant. I feel like
They can change in 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And just to dive into that a little bit more too, Mo. So you called it intentional action. Was that correct? Okay.
Inspired action.
Inspired action. I apologize. So how
okay.
how does somebody go from taking the 10 steps that they don't need to take to really like hyper focusing in and doing the 1 to 2 things that are really going to push the needle forward? Like, how does someone discern the difference there?
That's a great question. I think the number one thing you can do is regulate your nervous system. And so the more you pause and you get quiet, the more you realize how much we're overstimulated in our environments, between TV, movies, music, news, all these different things. So our bodies are kind of constantly in this state of stress. When you start to remove that, you can start to recognize that you might, like, for instance, during the week, I might get only 1 or 2 inspired action steps, but I will know it because I'm like, oh, I need to call this person.
Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country in Keller Williams Realty, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I need to reach out and email that person and ask, but it's only 1 or 2 steps. When if I listen to my stress, it could be like, oh, I need to post 3 things today. I need to email 10 people, and I need to send out. No, I actually don't. But you have to calm down that voice, that inner voice that's freaking out, your ego freaking out, saying, go do.
That's so hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
Are you saying you calm down that voice of like anxiety? You still do those things because
No.
that's what you have to do, or do you just not reply to emails? You let
If
people
I receive an email from a potential coaching client, I'm gonna respond to it. Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as me putting
like,
energy out into the
where's
world,
the distinction there between, like, I do kind of have to get 180 things done in the next couple of weeks. I'm stressed about it. Where's the fine line? Where can you drop the ball and just relax a little bit?
Yeah.
And where can you just maybe get comfortable with what you're doing and focus on other stuff while, the work becomes subconscious? Like, is there any kind of, where I'm going with this? Do you train on that at all?
Totally. So a lot of it's around prioritization. So looking first at what are you doing in your life overall, and what is actually adding to your life and what's taking away. Because a lot of people are involved in a lot of activities that they don't actually want to be doing. And so I think the hardest part is recognizing, oh, I'm friends with this person, or I'm in relationship with this person, or I'm collaborating with this person, but it doesn't really feed me.
Yeah.
I don't really like it. So the first thing is actually cutting those things out. Because once you cut those things out, then all of a sudden you have a lot fewer action steps to take. So it becomes, so if somebody's emailing me and saying, hey, I want to work with you, of course I'm going to respond to that. But as far as me putting something out into the world, like me introducing an energetic exchange, let's say, like emailing something to someone and saying, hey, I want to work with you, that's going to be much fewer. I'm going to do that with very intentional, inspired action only. I'm not going to do it just to do it. I'm not going to go email 100 people today just to do that.
Right. I'm far too busy for that stuff. And this is something I'm going through with my businesses too. Like when to say no and when to not drop the ball, because like I've been at literal max capacity, what it feels like max capacity the last couple weeks. I've even dropped a couple of loan clients off to Nick because I'm like, man, I don't have the capacity right now, unfortunately. But like, and in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. So it's very weird, like you're saying. And yes, you're right. We are absolutely overstimulated, just completely overstimulated, specifically with smartphones, when we've talked about this before, but the little computers in our pockets don't always work to be our friends.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how can you cure us?
We're asking for help, Mo.
I can see his brain is just going. I can see he's working on all sorts of stuff in there. What do you mean cure us?
We don't know. Sometimes we just don't know what to focus on.
Yeah.
And what is important. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that because they don't see the results of their actions for months. So they don't know what's important and what's not. What have you found to be important things to focus on throughout the day in order to sustain a healthy business, yet a healthy mindset?
Things that bring me joy.
Yeah.
So if coaching brings me joy, if retreats bring me joy, then taking the action step or the inspired action around those things. Things that don't bring me joy, I give myself time, like a month or two, to think about and to feel into, is this not bringing me joy, or is there something about this that needs to change or shift before I drop it? But I will no longer hang on to collaborations or activities that don't bring me joy. Because I found that the more that I follow my joy, the happier and more fulfilled and more peace I get, and money flows with it. And so a lot of it is building trust with yourself, trusting that you actually know what's best for you. Beyond all these voices and things that we have outside of us, all these books, all these coaches, all these speakers, all these leaders, all these people that we've learned things from, the ultimate goal is to be able to trust yourself and know that you are actually trustworthy.
Yeah.
So are you saying, like, if there are things that in your job or your business that don't bring you joy, you just don't do them? Or do you leverage it out? What have you found?
So one example of that would be that even before I could afford it, I hired an accountant. Because I want to understand my money and I want to know where the money flows, but I do not want to track it, do the P&Ls or my taxes. I don't have a desire to do a deep dive into learning all the loopholes of the tax system at all. And so I hired that out, leveraged that out immediately.
Yeah.
And so not to say that, like, of course there are things that I do, like cleaning my house, that I don't particularly enjoy doing, but it has to get done. And so I do that. But overall, the big pieces of my business and what they involve are my most joy-filled aspects. Like coaching, retreats, workshops, working with people brings me an immense amount of joy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How did you start organizing workshops?
What do you mean by organizing? Like developing the curriculum, or
how do you get people to show up to a workshop? Before, like, because at some point you didn't have an audience,
Right. You got to build trust
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you start? Like, if you can give a piece of advice to people that do have something valuable to teach, but they just don't know how to do the next step.
Yeah, good question. The first thing is you teach it no matter what, whether you have one person in the room or 100 people in the room. And so what started it was when I started teaching back in 2013. I probably had like 15 or 20 people in that first class. And that was because of Jesse's reputation, because Jesse had been teaching and people were like, oh, Jesse's EA is teaching something. I want to go check this out. And then I started to build my own network. And so I did a lot of personal invitations. I absolutely emailed, called people and said, hey, come to this class. I promise you it'll be worth your time. And I just continued to do that year after year after year. For my first retreat, I had 25 women from around the country, and a lot of those were personal invitations to people that I wanted to interact with. I knew I wanted to learn from this EA who was on a big team in the Midwest, so I reached out to them personally and said, hey, I really want you to come because I want to learn from you as well. And so you have to be willing to do that effort, because by the time I got to the third year of doing my retreats, it sold out in 48 hours. I didn't have to do the work because I had built that audience over the last couple of years. So it's a lot of grassroots effort of reaching out, believing in what you have to say, and inviting people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think, so we got into like your background, that you worked on this real estate team, and then you started your own business. But I don't know if we actually dug in. What exactly is it that you do in your business?
So I thought coaching would be more of my business, but I never wanted to be one of those coaches who had 35 to 40 clients a week. That's just a lot of energy because I put a lot of intention and energy into each of my coaching clients. It's not just during the coaching session that I'm thinking about them. I give them access to me through Marco Polo, which is a video chat app. And so, because a lot of the growth happens between sessions. And so coaching is probably 25% of my business.
Okay.
The other part of it is doing workshops around communication and vulnerability. So a team can bring me in to work specifically with their team, or they can bring me into their brokerage. And I also started working across industries because a lot of the skill set that I have as a director of operations coincides quite nicely with helping people find their joy.
Sure.
Like a lot of helping people learn how to prioritize, like what we were just talking about, and remove stuff from their life that is no longer in alignment with their highest and best self. Just by doing that part, life starts to get a lot easier. So coaching, workshops, and then doing retreats for teams. Like they can hire me to come and facilitate a retreat, and then I put on my own retreats. So I love it when retreats that people can come to from any industry.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Can you give us a demonstration of this?
Of what?
Or like can you consult Jeremy on his
Sure.
he used some language there. He just says I'm too busy for stuff.
Yeah.
Like is there something where you can be like, hey Jeremy, stop using those terms?
Yeah.
Can you give us a little
Hello, Bob.
Totally.
Would probably be the best way to do it, I think. But
Well, there's two.
if you're a willing participant?
I mean, if Mo's willing as well, I mean, we got you on the podcast here.
Well, we don't have to go super personal for this. There's two activities that come to mind right away when you talk about that. One of them is one I just made up is a you know the strainer that you use in the kitchen that you put your veggies in and strain water through, or noodles or whatever?
Yeah.
I print out a picture of that strainer sometimes for classes that I teach, and I have people, they each get a copy, and then around the strainer you write all the things in your life right now that are draining you, and even the littlest bit, just a little bit, like interacting with your neighbor's dog, whatever it might be. You put it on that list, and you start to look at where are some aspects in my life that I could start to plug some of those holes, which can sometimes be very difficult for parents when their kids might be a source of that drain, and having to acknowledge, like, this does drain my energy when I come home from work and have to fix dinner, help kids with their homework, whatever it might be. But the idea behind it is that you put it down on paper, you actually get it in front of you, and you start to look for solutions, because there are ways to help create a schedule or create or find people to help you with things like that.
Sure.
So that would be the first thing that I would do, because when people say they're too busy, it usually means they are not able to prioritize right now, and there's something that's stopping them from prioritizing.
Sure.
That's the first thing that comes to mind that I would do.
Yeah, and just reference like too busy. Like, yes, I will admit, like, I'm pretty dang busy, but like I'd say like I'm at capacity, and I'm learning lately to leverage a couple things out, and that's really been a blessing to me. So I can keep actually adding more onto my plate, which is weird. But what I don't do, so like kind of what you talked about, like let the things that you don't want to do go. You still have to do some of those things, like you said, but what I like to do is I like to gamify some of those things. Like, okay, how fast can I get this done? Or how good can I make this look when I'm done? If I turn it into a game, it becomes a source of fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lately, my partner and I neither one of us really enjoy cleaning. So once a month, we put a timer up, and it goes for 60 minutes, and we just clean as much as we can in 60 minutes, and then we're done, and we celebrate somehow. Yeah.
Sam and I have done that a few times. I need to implement it more, but yeah, we've definitely done that.
It helps.
Right on.
And I want to talk just a little bit about your retreats, obviously, because I don't think we got to the personal side of the story here. So when I found Mo, I found you, I believe, on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not sure how I followed you, but I followed a bunch of people just like in the real estate coaching, mindset, entrepreneur business. You came across my page, I started following you. I really loved what you had to say, and then I noticed you were doing admin retreats, and my wife was a transaction coordinator and an admin for a team, and she's an admin in her own business. I made a connection there. And I will say, Mo, that like your retreat was absolutely life-changing for my wife.
You're the reason why she quit my team. Thank you, Mo.
I think she quit before
We
that.
did talk about that.
Yeah.
She quit before that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Whatever, Mo.
No, but anyway, like she came back, and I remember, like, you know, I didn't get to speak with her a whole bunch. She was very like ingrained in your retreat, ingrained in the people and the culture there. But she's like, there was one day where it's just like everybody was in tears. Like whatever you did there was so powerful enough to move a group of people into like a group cry session, and I'm like, that sounds amazing, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she did quit before that.
Yeah.
Or
It's not because of Mo.
it wasn't because of Mo. I was trying to blame you on something.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Don't blame her. If anything, she's helped. But what's that like, changing people's lives on a regular basis when you get to do these retreats and you get to have these interactions? Like how filling is that to you to be the person or be the source where all these people can come together and learn and grow and be vulnerable together? Like, what is that like?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm completely addicted to it. I think I'm addicted to it because ultimately it feels real to me. Because I got tired of, I felt like since I was a little kid, I could always see the truth, and there were very few people who spoke the truth. Meaning like we'd be in an awkward situation or an awkward conversation and nobody would actually say the thing.
Yeah.
And I just got tired of that. And so these retreats are like the essence of what I feel like are truly going to help our world heal in so many different ways, because there are so many people, men and women included, who have all of these feelings and aren't saying them, aren't speaking them. And so when you don't speak those feelings, it turns into all sorts of things, all sorts of messes, messy relationships, messy working situations. There's a whole lot that happens from not expressing yourself. And so being able to give people a place that they feel safe enough to actually share what's really in their heart. And then once they release it, they may not even have to do anything with it, but just speaking it out and saying it, oh my gosh, it's changed me. It's changed everybody who's ever come to one of my retreats. I feel very, very lucky to be someone that gets to do this. I mean, that's the essence of why I started my business, because if I could do this for the rest of my life, I will feel completely accomplished. Yeah,
sure, absolutely. And you're doing a fantastic job at it. Like I've seen nothing but good things come from your retreats.
Thanks.
Just on like a personal level, like how do you get people to be that vulnerable with you and like accept you as the leader and trust in you to let go? Like, what's that process like?
Oh, good question. I think ultimately over the years, the thing that people keep coming back to me and saying is there is no judgment. And so I am a very good listener. And I've always, like I said earlier today, I was talking about how I didn't speak very much for the first like 32 years of my life. And you learn a lot when you listen more than you speak. And so when I'm with people, unless they're asking me questions, I'm typically the one asking them questions, and I'm deeply listening. And when you deeply listen, the things that you can say in response become way much more powerful. Like it's way more powerful for me to say 5 words to someone than it is to say 365.
Sure.
Anise Kavanaugh is someone that I often quote because she's completely doing exactly what I needed research-wise to show to executives the importance of this work around energy. She shares that 93% of your impact is due to your presence.
Okay.
Only 7% is due to your words.
Interesting. Okay.
And so by creating an environment where people understand they are not going to be judged for what they say or share, that level of safety, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that bottom of the triangle is all about psychological safety and physical safety. Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have food? So that's literally how I think about setting up my retreats is, okay, I want to make sure accommodations are comfortable, which for that retreat that Sam came to, it was not, the best in terms of accommodations.
Sam shared a bed with a girl.
Yeah. It was a whole
Y'all
experience.
made it work.
But that's definitely what I consider first.
Like Sam slept with Katie. I'm not going to say her last name, but like Katie got Sam pregnant because she was on this retreat.
She
That
did.
became the joke because when Sam came back from this retreat, we found out that she was pregnant, and she manifested that. Like we made it happen, and a lot of her manifestations and her outlook was definitely thanks to you. Like I can only do so much as a partner. I know that's like a limiting mindset, but like she listened to you, and that was really great.
Oh, well, I think a lot of it too is about helping people realize their power. So sometimes they just need to hear it from a different voice. You might have been saying a lot of the same things that I said, but sometimes it's a different voice. And our body responds to our thoughts.
Yeah.
And so if we can change how we think about things, our body will respond differently.
Isn't that weird? Like our own negative self-talks, and like from the people that we love the most, we don't want to hear it. Isn't that wild?
It is wild.
Like a complete stranger could tell me like they're proud of me, and that would probably do just as well as somebody in my life who's like, hey, you did a good job on this. But can we talk just? I know we're
Same with negative.
Same
as
with
well.
negative. Yeah. Can we talk about like negative self-talk for a
Sure.
minute, Mo? Do you do any kind of teaching on that, or like what's some? Just this culture again it's so. People are so ingrained on their phones. People are constantly comparing themselves to other people and to what they don't have and what they should be doing. Your mind is like the greatest weapon, for better or for worse, against you or for you. Like, do you have any good self-talk for people or good self-talk techniques to maybe help get them out of their funks?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing is filter what you're taking in. So treat your brain like you do a computer or like you do anything else. It's like it will soak up whatever you put around it. So for me, I don't watch a lot of movies or a lot of TV because all of that stuff just goes right in. And so really look at what you're taking in, which includes the people around you. How do the people around you speak to you? Because most likely, if you have a lot of negative self-talk, there are probably some people around you who reinforce that, whether it's joking about it or whatever it might be. So first look at what you take in. And then look at what do you want to replace it with?
Sure.
How do you want to actually speak to yourself? And one of the things I have people do is write down a list of affirmations using I am and you are statements. And you want to write down enough to make it about 2.5 minutes long. I got this from a coach when I was in the real estate world, actually, named Derek Shank. He's awesome. Lives in Boise as well, in Idaho. And he had me record my affirmations on my phone in my own voice and then listen to them every day. And I started doing that. And after about a year, I was in Hawaii. I was looking in the mirror and I said something negative about my body. And then I heard in my head, "You are lovely." And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It just worked. And so when your brain hears your own voice saying those things, it's much different than listening to someone else saying those affirmations. So again, realizing your power, realizing that you can actually regrow your brain with meditation. You can, once you realize what you're capable of, then you can start to actually play with it.
Yeah.
How often do you, so if you're going to take this approach and record yourself doing affirmations, how often should you be playing it to yourself? And does it matter what time of day or for how long, how many times it's repeated?
Good question. So follow your intuition, whatever feels right to you. You might have to listen to it 3 times a day if you're finding yourself really getting down on yourself at different points. Also, I would take note of when do you do that? When do you have negative self-talk? Is it when you haven't eaten lunch yet? Are you what's going on there? 'Cause those patterns all make a difference. But right before bed and right when you wake up, your brain is still in, I believe it's theta state. Theta is when you are more really open to it's much easier to rewire your brain in that state.
Sure.
So listening to them right after you wake up, your brain is much more likely to take that in. Same thing with right before you go to bed. So that's why I meditate right when I get up in the morning, because I want the first thing that goes in there to be of my choosing.
Yeah.
Have you heard of David Goggins?
Yeah.
So have you heard that he, on all his negative comments on social media, he'll record himself saying that?
Wow.
Oh.
And then he'll play it back to him as he goes to bed so that he wakes
Wow.
up furious the next day to tackle another day.
He's a different kind of animal, man.
My
So
God.
do you,
Yeah.
so you
I
recommend
would-
maybe not taking that approach?
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because I asked my partner to check out that book. My partner's an avid reader, and we talk about David Goggins quite often, actually, because the thing I don't agree with is I am choosing not to use pain as a motivator anymore.
Well, I think, he had an abusive childhood.
Sure.
More abusive than most.
Sure.
So I think he's just needs the pain in his life to move forward.
I always tell people, after I listen to David Goggins, I really have to go listen to Mel Robbins. I gotta be okay, he hates me, he says I'm not enough, and I need to be you're loved, you are enough. But then I don't know what I'm supposed to believe anymore.
Maybe you need to listen to less people and listen to yourself. Record yourself.
Maybe I do. That sounds great, actually.
Just listen to this podcast.
Something Ed Milet does that I thought was really powerful too. So when you do have those, automatic negative thoughts in your head, he visualizes scratching them out with a coin. Right,
like a scratch ticket.
Yeah, like a scratch ticket, right? I'm down on myself. I'm never enough. You just scratch that, and he's eventually your brain starts to build up scar tissue around the scratch, where it's no longer a scratch, and it's just you can't even see it anymore. So, and you just train yourself again. The thing in our heads is. It's a little blob of jelly that could maybe power a light bulb that gives us anxiety, but can also be the greatest tool that we know how to use. So it's just fascinating how brains work.
It's also interesting to talk back to that voice and say, hey, why do you think that?
Yeah, that's
Because usually there's a part of yourself that either from childhood or from some part of your life that is trying to express itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Bedros Keuilian. Have you ever heard of that guy?
No.
Oh, anyway. Yeah, when it comes to negative, self-doubt or negative talk, he likes to envision himself tying that guy up and throwing him in the trunk of his car.
Wow.
As he will drive through the day, and then he can always let him out at another time, but for
Okay.
now he's tied up in the back of the car.
Wow.
I like how there's some very aggressive examples coming out. Yeah. Like, tie him up, put him in the back of
Well,
the
you're
car.
talking to guys, so that's sometimes.
I'm more sensitive than most guys, man. Don't lump me in with guys.
Okay, guy.
Okay, guys. All right. Well, we're getting close to the hour mark here. I do want to do a couple wind down questions. Before that, Mo, I want to just kind of ask, like, how can people get in touch with you, and like, what kind of things are you teaching, and how can people get really? Oh, you also do a podcast too. I want to talk about that. So you do the I Love It Win podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Where can people find out about your podcast? Where can people find out about your retreats? Or where can people find out more about you and what you're doing in general?
Yeah, the best place is just to go to my website, iloveitwhen.org, and you can sign up for my newsletter, which I send out every month, and that gives you all upcoming workshops, retreats, anything going on, links to my latest podcasts, all of it there. But my podcast you can find on YouTube and any major podcast platform.
Perfect.
What about minor podcast platforms?
Mine are too, yeah.
Oh, we only
all
do
the in
research.
between.
We're not on Google. Sorry. But yeah, Nick, do you have any final questions before we kind of get into the wind down?
No, we're good for the wind down. We're hitting our time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Mo, thank you so much again for joining us today. Like, I seriously love talking with you, and I love everything that you're doing. I think it's fantastic and fascinating. You are changing people's lives on a daily basis, and if you don't know Mo, you definitely should. So we're going to do some questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first question is, what's one business or investing book that you recommend every single person read? And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it doesn't even need to be business or investing. I'm going to say, what's the most impactful book you've ever read?
Ever read? Dang, well, ever read, I'd have to say Fierce Conversations that we talked about.
Yeah, I love
By
it.
Susan Scott.
Cool. Well, then we've already got that recommendation. What's another book that you could recommend?
Well, the next one that came to mind that I was going to say was The Buddha and the Badass by Vashon. If you haven't read that yet, fantastic book.
The Buddha and the Badass?
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great title.
Yeah.
Next question for you. So, if you had $30 million just randomly gifted to one of your bank accounts, what would you spend it on?
What would I spend it on? Fantastic. I would buy a bunch of investment properties and set up all sorts of different passive income to fuel what I want to create. Yeah.
I love it. And then you can go do everything you want, right? So free up yourself, free up your time to really cater to your soul. I love that. Next question for you, Mo, is how do you define success?
Fulfillment. So I think redefining what success looks like has been a real process for me these last couple years. Trying to get out of the hustle and grind mode and into finding out what really brings me happiness. And so when I feel fulfilled, that's when I feel successful. Yeah.
I love it.
Nice.
That's a really good answer. Yeah. Like, we talk to a lot of people about what success actually is, and it really comes intrinsically from a personal value. Like I can be a success and not have any money in the bank. Like the money doesn't matter. The money will come when it comes. Fulfillment definitely is a very good answer for that. Next question for you.
Cool,
If you
I
had
passed the test.
Any advice to give, like a first or an investor looking for their first or second deal? Like, what would that be?
So my sweet spot is to find the house that investors don't want and first-time homebuyers don't want.
Okay.
That's why the FHA 203K loan is so great, because the house is usually in just a sort of a spot where it's not enough money for an investor to buy it. You know, they're not going to make enough money, and a first-time homebuyer is not going to pick it because they want something that's already done and ready to go.
Okay.
And so don't be afraid to try something different, and make sure you're working with a lender and a real estate agent who have actually purchased investment properties themselves, ideally, because they'll be able to think of more options.
That's really good advice. That's great advice, especially these days and age. This is
Yes.
203K. We got to bring that back.
Not the 205K, like I said. Listen to the
That
expert
could be. Maybe that's the next level loan we don't know
yeah,
about.
maybe it's the version 2.0 of the 203. I don't know.
Yeah, when you said, I was like, what is a 50K?
Don't I said 5?
Or yeah,
I don't know what I'm
205K
doing, man.
or something like that.
Last question for you, Mo. So when you're not coaching people or changing people's lives or running your podcast or Like, what do you do with your free time, and what actually fills your cup outside of work?
That's a great one. I haven't, outside of like a few things these last couple of years, I haven't been able to explore that as much since starting my business. So before it was playing volleyball. I played a lot of co-ed volleyball, but now it's probably getting outside and traveling. Like anywhere where there's water and mountains is my jam.
Yeah, I love it.
Nice.
Being outside.
Does anybody ever tell you that you're really tall?
Yes, quite often. When they meet me in real life, over the computer, they're like, they don't really realize, and then they meet me and they're like, holy shit, I had no idea. Yeah, I'm actually the shortest in my family.
Yeah, wow. So I remember Sam came back from a retreat, and I'm like, how's Mo? And she's like, she's very tall. I'm like, I wouldn't have figured.
That's how she is.
Yeah. That's great. So, again, thank you so much, Mo. Do you have any final closing thoughts for us?
No, I just appreciate you guys. This was fun.
Yeah, this was a really good time.
Thank you for having me.
And we got all of Mo's information here. We'll have everything in the show notes as well. So if you want to go find Mo, just find in the show notes or listen to the actual podcast where she says stuff.
Did you say show notes?
Show notes.
Oh, okay.
Show notes. Show
Play
notes.
on word there.
Yeah. All good. Well, hey, we're gonna send this thing home. Again, thank you so much, Mo, for joining us, and we will see you next week again on the Investor Shed podcast.
Thank you. See ya.
Hang tight.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.